you?
Yeah, sounds great. Sounds really good.
Good.
Lewis Herthum, what was your favorite thing about Westworld season 1?
My favorite thing was just the fact that I was a part of it, first of all. But I think, God, I guess if I had to just like really pinpoint the favorite thing over the favorite moments and that sort of thing, I'd say the ability to do a character like this after a pretty long career where you literally get to explore so many different emotions and, you know, personalities and in one gig. So it's an amazing opportunity for any actor to be able to do that. So I think that would be my favorite thing.
You said just being a part of it was a real highlight. What's special about the show Westworld? Why is that something that's amazing to be a part of?
Well, first of all, I think because that movie, the original movie, was something that I was so fond of and has had a lasting effect on me. I mean, it was so far ahead of its time. And I've seen it many, many times. I was extremely familiar with the film, even when I, you know, got the call that I was going to audition for this series. You know, that the fact that I just could be a part of it was extremely special. But what makes the show so special is that I don't really know of any show that's come anywhere near doing what this show has, as far as creating something that's so interactive, really, and stimulates the brain the way that this show does. I mean, people are watching it 2 and 3 times just to absorb all the little things that exist there. So I think that one of my favorite things is that it goes so much further than being just a regular run-of-the-mill TV show. It's so much more than that. It's you know, to use the term in the show itself, it's like a maze, and you have to work your way through it, and you know, you guess at things that you're wrong at many times, and many times you know, as many people did, got a few things right.
So, and when that original Westworld film came out, that was sort of about 10 years before you started, like before your first credit on Internet Movie Database.
That's correct. That's correct.
So when that, like, but you may have been doing some acting before then, I'm not sure, but
not really, no.
Yeah. So, like, I guess you would have never imagined that you would be in a TV adaptation of that movie in 2017.
Never entered my mind. Other than to say at that time I wanted to be a stuntman. That was my first goal, and so, but you know, so I had interest in movies and so forth. But I don't think I really. When you're a stuntman, you don't really, you look at like the film Bullet, that was such a inspiration to me. I look at that film from the standpoint of, wow, I want to do a chase scene like that. I want to drive that Mustang, but when you watch a film like that, from an actor standpoint, well, put it this way, I think actors look at those early films from a different standpoint than a stunt, you know, a would-be or a aspiring stuntman would. But no, in answer to your question, never in a million years did I think what I think of that. Never.
Yeah, like you probably wouldn't have even thought in 2017 they'd be making a TV adaptation of the movie.
No, I'm sure I didn't think of that. But what I did know is that it was very far ahead of its time.
Yeah.
You know, it really was. I mean, Michael Crichton, on most of the things that he created were ahead of their time.
Is there a performance or a film that inspired you to get into acting?
I would say not really. I can't really say that there was any particular film that did it, because it was the experience of having been in my first play, which my agent at the time, Dee Cawthorne in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, sort of almost forced me to go in and audition for it. That's the thing that really, I mean, I had seen, the reason I hesitated, because I honestly can remember that when Star Wars came out, it was in '77. That certainly didn't inspire me to be an actor, but it had an impression on me. That film was so different, so groundbreaking, that it made me a little more, I think, interested in film. And then shortly after that, honestly, this may sound kind of crazy, but Saturday Night Fever and Grease, which I ended up doing on stage, I saw John Travolta as a young actor having great success. And I think I really felt like, sorry, John Travolta, if you ever hear this, but I thought, like, I can do that. And so that inspired me a little bit to want to do it and maybe veer off of the stunt, or at least explore it. And once I did, I really felt it wasn't until I did that play when I realized that, yeah, I can do this, and it's something worthwhile to explore. But I mean, with all due respect to the film and to John Travolta, I wouldn't say that, it was just the magnitude of I mean, he was the biggest star in the world. I visited Los Angeles in 1978, saw him sitting in a restaurant with my sister, my mother. So there was and getting caught up in that, going to Universal Studios and all those things sort of combined. It was right in that period of time. And then, of course, I don't know, 10, 15 years later or so, maybe not even that, I was working as a regular or recurring regular on Murder, She Wrote on the Universal lot. So all kind of came around full circle.
Oh, that's so nice. In Westworld, I'm not sure if you Ed Harris the other day was saying he'd love you to get an Emmy nomination. He said to he said, I don't know if you remember this scene where Evan's original father is being talked to. He's sitting here naked and they're just grilling him and he starts losing it. I mean, just that itself is brilliant. Talk us through that scene that Ed Harris likes so much.
Well, first, let me just say that, coming from a man that I've admired and watched for, since, The Right Stuff. In fact, I met Ed right after The Right Stuff because an actor named Scott Paulin, who played Deke Slayton in the film, was a buddy of mine, and he introduced me to Ed. I mean, just very briefly, right, 85 or so, or shortly after the film came out. I don't remember exactly what year it was. So I've sort of admired him all of his career. And, so first let me say I'm extraordinarily flattered and honored for him to have said that. But as far as the scene itself, man, it's every actor's dream come true. I mean, you have it all. You're being directed by Jonathan Nolan. You're working with one of the greatest actors to ever live. You have a chance, in Anthony Hopkins, you have a chance to, as I said earlier, play all these different roles, these different characters and these different emotions, all in the same, in the same space of time, basically. It was amazing. I mean, Anthony Hopkins is the most generous man, generous of spirit as an actor, sweet heart of a man. I mean, if I had met him and didn't know he was an actor, I would be saying, wow, that's really one of the nicest men I've ever met. He really is. And, and as far as the scene itself, I had a lot of time to prepare. I was very ready for it. People question, how difficult it was being, in the buff. That was sort of the least of my worries after about 5 minutes. Just wanted to get it right, when you're face to face with a man of his caliber, Yeah, it was, the highlight of my career so far, without question. I mean, that one scene, pinnacle.
What do you think makes your character Peter tick? Like, how do you approach playing this robot?
Well, what makes him tick would be his program. So to address that first, I have a daughter who'll be 13 Sunday, so I can certainly relate to the love a father has for his daughter. So we're very similar in that way. It wasn't hard for me to get to those emotional places with playing those scenes on the porch with Evan, the first scenes. Then, but Peter, so his main goal is to protect Dolores. That's his main goal, as he says in that interrogation. I must protect Dolores. I am what I am because of her. So, that's what makes him tick. And then as far as, that's his program. And, when it's sort of spelled out for you, you just play it. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
yeah. It does. And you said that, as the father of a 13-year-old daughter, you found to portray the care and love that he had for Dolores was something easy for you to tap into. What was the hardest and most challenging thing for you to tap into as an actor with this character?
I think when you're doing a scene like that scene with Anthony Hopkins, and you're doing, I honestly, because a couple of people said, there you are reciting Shakespeare with one of the great Shakespeare actors of all time. I honestly did not approach it that way. That would have been disastrous for me. I only approached it from the standpoint of the character who, at the time, I was playing the professor when I'm reciting that and threatening, only from the standpoint of what the information was that I was, parlaying in that moment. But I think that was maybe the hardest part still, because, and there were other quotes and things that didn't make it into the final cut. So, when you're doing something like that, and even though I rehearsed it with Jonah and Lisa a few times, there was some additional dialogue since the rehearsals that were added. So the hardest part was just sort of hoping that you were, doing justice to the script and to what they wanted. So the good news was, Jonah's a very hands-on and a wonderful collaborator, to work with. And after the first take, he came up and he was whispering something to me, and I said, this sort of made it much easier. He said something. I said, "Are you happy?" And he goes, "I'm ecstatic. Just keep doing what you're doing." So I'm like, that takes a little bit of the the burden off. And also, Mr. Hopkins, after the first take, gave me a big smile and a thumbs up. So that also made me a little more at ease.
That's nice. Well, after that first episode, you were such a sort of a driving force in that first episode in a lot of ways. I was expecting to see more of you as the season went on than we ended up seeing. Did you also feel like your character might have been in it a bit more?
Well, honestly, I can't say that I did, only because I don't even know if Peter was. I don't know, and you'd have to ask Jonah or Lisa. I'm not sure that I was even meant to come back, or if I was there a plan at that point? Because actually, Lisa had told me, she, after I was done, she goes, we loved what you did, but we're honestly not sure where this character is going. And I felt like every time I came back, I just was so grateful that they had found a way to bring Peter back. And then in the 8th episode, when he's downloaded with all the data from the park, I felt, well, that's their way of saying that you will be back. So no, I wasn't necessarily surprised that there wasn't more, and I was always grateful for everything. And I don't know if I don't think this is too big of a spoiler. There was a scene that we shot that was not included in the first season that I have a feeling will pop up somewhere. I wouldn't be surprised. So that also gave me a little bit of an inclination that there might be more, but you never know. I mean, you just never know. There's no way to really guess what they have in store, and they're brilliant at it. And so I wouldn't presume to try at this point.
I'm intrigued as to what that scene could be. I can't wait till Peter in a couple of years. Lewis, in a couple of years, if they never never air that scene, you'll have to tell us what it was about.
I will if we get through the whole series and it never aired, I'd be happy to. I don't think they would. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I'm excited. What do you think his because it was a big sort of important part of the pilot, and then it's a character we don't see for much of the rest of the season. He pops in and out at times. Right. How do you think? What do you think his role is in that pilot? What's the most important thing that Peter does that sets the tone for the course of the season that we then see?
Well, I mean, I've heard a few people talk about this, but a lot of people haven't. You know, Peter's the first one to show major malfunction and major signs of being sentient by, you know, the conversation, not only when he's the first one that says these violent delights have violent ends. He whispers that to Dolores. So he's the very first time you hear that is Peter saying it to Dolores. And you don't know maybe until, well, you know it at the end of the pilot when he says, Stubbs asks Dolores what he said. And she said, he told me not to tell. So he clearly knows that, and this is my interpretation. I haven't been told this.
Okay.
Somehow or another, he was able, because these violent delights have violent ends is an audible command, if you will, for Wyatt. So how Peter has it, and the reason you know that is because those tablets, fans got this. This was not my doing, but they freeze the frame and then they read everything on there. And in one of the spot where Dr. Ford is integrating Wyatt into Dolores, it says these violent delights have violent ends. Audio command, I think it says something like that. So how did Peter get that? And how did that photograph trigger that? But he says to her after the very first time he's glitching on the porch, and he says, you have to leave now. Hell is empty and all the devils are here. So he knows, he's got to know something that, you know, that something is up. And then of course, in the diagnostic scene, he says, I will have such revenges on you both. And then he looks at Bernard as well. So I think that, to go back to your question, I think that there's a setup there. Clearly that, you know, all's not well in paradise. And even though you say, oh, it's no big deal, it's just our past coming back to haunt us, as Dr. Ford said, clearly it's not. So I think that some of the people that did some digging maybe didn't dig quite as far, because at least they did. I didn't hear it. I didn't hear a lot of people saying, well, wait a minute. If Peter was the first one to say these violent delights have violent ends, and we know now that that's a command for Wyatt or associated with Wyatt, how did he get it? So so there's still a mystery for me. And, but I do think that, again, to your question, it's the first glimpse that there's, you know, some real trouble ahead for, you know, those who at Delos who run the park.
And with the big end of season 2 twist, it is really interesting to think through how much of everything was part of just Ford's plan to bring Dolores to that place where she would.
Well, clearly. And since we know that Maeve's decision to get off the train, whether you knew it or not while you're watching the program, we know now, because Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy have divulged that was her decision. So one might ask, was it Dolores' decision to shoot Ford in the back of the head, or did Ford plan it? But Ford, we know, I think it's in episode 4 or 6, Charlotte comes into Ford's office and there's a whole setup of the city. And I don't know if you caught this, but all the little figures coming out of the woods, you can see them all lined up. The hosts coming out of the woods. So he knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I mean, there's one of the theories is that the host that he was making in his little secret laboratory where Teresa met her in was he cloning himself, and was that actually his host that got shot in the head? That's another one of the theories, and not Dr. Ford. I kind of hope so. I sure hope he comes back.
Yeah. You want another scene with that?
I don't get to work with him. I just love watching him. I want to say this about, I mean, we've seen Sir Anthony Hopkins well, we've seen him play Hannibal in several films, but, we've never seen a 10-hour arc of a character. And so we saw a 10-hour arc of his character that was extraordinary. And I hope he's recognized very soon, if you know what I mean for that. Yeah. I think it's be very.
Yeah. That's what's so great about TV, that you can tell stories and flesh out characters for 10 hours, 20 hours. They're like, yeah.
Yeah,
it's
or
incredible.
Years even.
Yeah, years. And you sort of.
Because if you think about it, we've never seen Anthony Hopkins play a character for that long a period of time.
Yeah. No, it's pretty exciting. And what's your favorite moment from Westworld that you weren't in? So just as an audience member watching the show.
That I wasn't in. Oh my gosh, there's so many of them.
Yeah.
Let's see. I mean, for me, it was such a jaw-dropping experience every episode. I mean, I have several favorite little moments. I ran into Leonard Num at the y'all's party, your kickoff Emmy party, and I hadn't seen him since he lobotomized me. Peter, I love his moment where he thinks, when he realizes Bernard is a host, and he realizes it, and Thandi is there with him, and he just kind of looks at himself like, am I one? That, for whatever, that tiny little moment, it just stood out to me. I love that moment, but I knew that Bernard was a host. So I was anxious to see how that played out, and the reason I knew he was a host is because one of the days when I went in to film, when you go into film, you get sides. They're just the little mini sides for what's being shot that day. I never got scripts. I got a script for the pilot, but that was it. So every time I got to work, I'd be like looking through the sides going, oh, let me see what I can learn. And I happened to be there the day that he was finding out that he did the scene. So I had to keep that secret for like 2 years or whatever, but God, the shootout obviously in the pilot was so special. Pretty much everything with Ed, I loved his character. I love watching him. I think it was a real telling moment when we find out that he is this big philanthropist that saved this kid's life. And I love the fact that he talks about the fact that he saved his sister's life, and then he goes, "Shut up or I'll kill you." It just, I don't know, man. There's so many of them. I can't even.
Yeah. What was the most fun you had on set?
Well, most fun would have to be the scene playing opposite Anthony Hopkins. For any actor, it just doesn't get any better than that. It was a blast being in Utah, riding horses up to the corral where I find the photograph. It was all fun. Every day was fun. But yeah, that's the pinnacle to be able to do something like that. So by far, that was the most fun.
What would you hope? What would be on the top of your wish list for season 2?
Well, if I had my way, or the original plan was to see Peter get out of the park with all this data.
Yeah.
And I would love for that to happen, because I'm so curious as to what that world looks like outside of the park in this time period, because we're in a time period, as Dr. Ford says in the pilot to Bernard, he says, we've cured all diseases. we've eradicated disease and illness, and soon we'll be rising Lazarus from his cave. So I'm dying to see what the outside world looks like. And the thought from an actor standpoint, if I'm going to be in the outside world, I guess he'd be almost like a idiot savant, because he doesn't have much of a personality, but yet he's got all this incredible amount of information. Not that it really pertains to the outside world, but so I would love to explore that, but I have no idea if we're going forward or backwards or where we're going. So yeah, that would be I would love to be outside of the park, at least for a little while, and see what's going on out there.
Like, all the best, Lewis, for the supporting race at the Emmys, and Anthony Hopkins with the lead actor race. It's been so much fun chatting Westworld with you.
Thank you, buddy. It's a pleasure, Matt.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're able to make it to the Gold Derby party the other week.
Yeah, it was great. Had fun.
Yeah. Unfortunately, being in Australia, I wasn't able to get there for it.
Yeah, no. It's. Do you ever get to the States?
I do, yeah. I try to get there once a year, although I haven't been in a little bit. But I'll be up in September for a friend's wedding, and I might come back for the Emmys as well. So I should.
Are you a freelance journalist that just works for them, or how's that work? Or do you work?
I'm a senior editor for Gold Derby, so someone. Yeah, no. So yeah, I work exclusively for them.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't know that, but
no, that's totally fine. I wouldn't have expected you to.
No worries. Well, listen, again, thank you, Matt. I appreciate the interest, and I really do appreciate the time.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, no worries. And seriously, let's all the best. It'd be great to see you back in season 2 and hopefully see that scene. I'm really excited to see that scene you shot now.
Yeah, well, I'm excited. Well, I am coming back to season 2 for sure. But yeah, so we'll see what happens.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for chatting.
Take care, buddy.
Bye. You too.
Bye-bye.